This is Pulse 95.
Pulse 95.
It's the Morning Majlis.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. Welcome back to the program. We're talking gold as over the past couple days, it's been hitting record highs as far as the prices are concerned. Some analysts attributing that to the fact that a lot of investors are nervous during this time of the pandemic and are seeking a safe place to put their money. And looking at the current gold price, it's at around $1,950 an ounce. And it's an interesting investment. Many investors shun it as it doesn't pay dividends or earn you any interest. But its price tends to go up in troubled times, such as the one we're in. And there has been a lot of speculation as to how high the price could get.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of speculation surrounding it. This is for the first time since 2011 that we're seeing a sudden increase in prices of gold. So far, it's trading at $1,950.24 an ounce now. There has been a 0.40% drop. Reason is it's just the trading rate value at the moment. However, analysts are expecting that this could rise to as high as $3,500 in 2 years. A lot of people are saying that, and a lot of wealth management companies are saying that $2,000 it would be a benchmark before it can rise again. But that's the situation at the moment. Goldman Sachs also predicted $2,500 an ounce, but $3,500 is quite optimistic for the time being.
Yeah, and for people who need a bigger picture on how gold prices, why they fall and why they increase. As a rule, when the value of the dollar increases relative to other currencies around the world, the price of gold tends to fall in US dollar terms. It is because gold becomes more expensive in other currencies. Now, as the price of any commodity moves higher, there tend to be fewer buyers. In other words, demand recedes. So interest rates also affect the price of gold. When interest rates move higher, the price of gold tends to fall, and vice versa, since it costs more to carry the metal, of course. So all in all, U.S. economic data is a major driver of gold prices, also monetary policy, which is controlled by the Federal Reserve.
Yes, indeed, Rania. And analysts are expecting that the price of the gold would surge even higher. One expert saying I'm looking for $1,000 or $3,500 per ounce within 2 years. We're talking dollars here. Another analyst saying the prices could consolidate at around $2,000 before increasing again. And one thing they all cited is the fact that there's no catalyst in the short term for gold to stop going up in price. They said the factors that drove gold to the prices that it's in at the moment are still very much in place and would continue to precipitate that rise in the gold price as well.
Yeah, I mean, they tend to have a price elasticity, a very positive one. So obviously whenever there's a demand, the prices will rise. At the moment, for high net worth individuals, easiest way to move money is not moving cash, but moving commodities or even metals such as gold. And to put things into perspective, why gold? Gold is obviously mined every year. So you would think because there's supply every year, why isn't the price of gold moving around? One of the reasons is because when it's consumed, particularly in its high consumption areas such as the East, India and China, gold is viewed as ends up in jewelry, or even if they buy gold bars, they're passed down generations to generations. It's always been seen as a long-term investment. They always see it, now this is generalizing, because some people could be general traders, but the aspect is that they think, okay, if I've got enough gold at the moment, my children, when they get married, I'm going to pass on this amount of gold so that then it becomes easier for them to continue with their lives. And then the kids think, they pick it up saying, oh, I mean, I could sell it now and make loads of money, or I could save it for when I need it. And there's always this
It won't
thought,
lose its value.
Yeah, and it won't lose its value. And to put things into better perspective, way back 2,000 years ago, Roman soldiers were paid in gold.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was their salary. And it's a currency. It's always been viewed as it, and it's always been viewed as a a reserve as well, and Federal Reserve, and we've seen it in situations such as Money Heist, for example. The amount of gold that is kept by a country, and that just gives you a basic ground level explanation in terms of why gold. And it really is very interesting to see at this time. During the Great Depression, prices of gold did rise. And we are in a similar kind of a situation where people are looking to buy more. Another possible factor is, do you know how we can't go traveling?
Yeah.
We can't do this. But some people who are very, very high net worth individuals, they've had saved up a lot of disposable income. So they think, you know what, instead of flushing it down and invest or buying something useless, how about invest in gold?
Yeah.
That could be one reason.
It could be one reason, but some might say beware fool's gold. But Warren Buffett is a notable opponent, or he's always attacked gold. He never invested in gold his life, he says. And he's pretty much warning investors not to invest in gold as well, saying that if you own 1 ounce of gold for an eternity, you still own 1 ounce of gold at its end as well. So he doesn't think it's the best use of your money since it doesn't generate interest and etc.
Yeah, that is true. I'm looking at this popular site, Investopedia.
Yes.
And they say, and they're citing their own citation, saying a Roman soldier was paid 2.31 ounces of gold per year. Centurions got $38.58 ounces. If we put things into perspective now, their salary is $3,700 per year. Right? And a U.S. Army private gets now 11 ounces of gold at current prices. To put things into comparison, inflation in the end dictates things.
Yeah.
So the annual investment growth rates of over 2,000 years is 0.08%. So you're not making much.
Exactly.
Technically. Warren Buffett could be right. Some people say, look, we're not looking at it as an investment. We're looking at it as semi-investment / gift / a little bit of a future to have some money. As opposed to losing that money and spending it elsewhere. So yeah, you can look at things both ways. It certainly is a very interesting time. But as of now, let's give you an update minute by minute. $1,949.10 is the current trading value for gold per ounce.
There you have it. Up next, we've got more discussions to be had. India is reportedly blocking more apps in China in the wake of the TikTok ban. Why is this still happening? And does it signal worsening tensions between India and China as well? Stay tuned for that on Pulse 95.
You are
This is Pulse 95.
Pulse 95.
It's the Morning Majlis.
Talking the stories that are shaping headlines, plus those that make you go,
Yes, welcome back onto the program. This is the Morning Majlis. We do talk about the stories that make you ponder over what's happening. One particular idea that we did discuss earlier was gold prices could reach as high as $3,500 an ounce over 2 years. That's according to analysts. Well, they're right. Are they? Is it going to happen? You never know. So that was one of the discussions that we've had on the show so far. But we are preparing for the Eid al-Adha, so there's lots to discuss. However, we'll focus a little bit more internationally. The big issue that we're talking about is that developed overnight is McDonald's shares were plunging. And at that time, you would be thinking, oh, what's happening there? I mean, it's such a popular food chain.
Absolutely.
People love going there anyway. It's Eid holidays. Kids are off school. They'd love to go there. But sadly, there's a bit of a situation that we're going to be talking about later on in the program. Plus, global stories.
Absolutely. Tune in to find out why Malaysia's former prime minister has been sentenced to over a decade in jail. We'll talk about that development from Malaysia. Plus a number of technology developments as Google's planning an ambitious transatlantic data cable. What does that mean? How would it integrate new technology into the cable? And how do we see the world of internet and technology transforming? Are things set to go much faster? Stay tuned to find out.
Yes, and we're going to talk about our favorite fast food joint, or one of our favorite fast food joint, as you just said, Abdul Karim, McDonald's, as it has recently reported its worst global sales decline in recent history. So what's going on? What caused this, really? How is it planning to recuperate? And will it be shutting down any stores in the near future, or just changing its strategy, marketing strategy or something? Well, you got to stay tuned to know more about this development and more.
Absolutely. And we are live on YouTube, so head over to YouTube, type Pulse 95 Radio for live stream of Pulse 95, and text us at the number 4215 throughout the program to join the conversation. Stay tuned to Pulse 95. This is the Morning Majlis.
Pulse 95.
The Morning Majlis.
Join the conversation.
95. Pulse 95.
The Morning Majlis. Talking the stories that are shaping headlines. This is Pulse 95.
Yes, this is Pulse 95, and we go over to Malaysia. Malaysia's former leader, Najib Razak, was found guilty of corruption and sentenced to 12 years in jail. And this was actually reported yesterday. Now, this is in the first trial over a multi-billion-dollar scandal at state fund that stretched to the Gulf states and Hollywood as well.
Yes, and this is stemming from a scandal, One Malaysia Development Berhad scandal. Now, 1MDB was supposed to be a state-owned investment company that took shape in 2009 under former Prime Minister Najib, who led the advisory board. And instead of promoting development like it had stated it would, it spurred investigations around the world into deal-making, election spending, and embezzlement, all under former Prime Minister Najib Razak. Figures are mind-blowing. Of the $8 billion that 1MDB raised via bond sales, United States investigators allege more than half was siphoned off. And angry voters in 2018 ousted Najib in the 2018 election that ended his party's 61 years of rule as well. We've had a series of trials. This has been a long, drawn-out affair. People still don't know where the money is. It's scattered all around the world. But things have definitely, or we could say this is a major development as far as the story is concerned.
Yeah, as for the charges that are... the criminal breach of the charges that he's facing is for laundering money and illegally receiving nearly $10 million from SRC International. That's one thing, right? But in punishment, he's been sentenced to 12 years and a fine of $49 million or 210 million ringgit. Now, Najib can appeal against this verdict, and that's going to be in Malaysia's federal court if convicted. And the verdict could partially or potentially be overturned, but that could take years. So he is in a very, very tricky situation at the moment. Scenes from Malaysia yesterday, you could see that him coming out the courts, press everywhere, traffic everywhere, people chanting slogans as well. It was a very, very intense evening over in Malaysia.
Yes, a very intense evening in Malaysia indeed, and there is still a lot brewing as far as the U.S. investigation is concerned here, because members of Goldman Sachs have been implicated here, taking bribes as well. So whether Goldman will have to take a guilty plea in this is another question as well. A number of funds are also filing civil suits against Goldman Sachs for their involvement in the 1MDB scandal, with more than $8 billion in bond sales and more accumulated billions through loans and interest payments involved in this as well. So it's a massive money trail, and definitely a big impact on Malaysia as well.
And what we know is Najib is to have promoted economic development. The 1MDB, that fund was created by him. He also used his associates to buy art, super yachts, and also fund the Wolf of Wall Street movie.
Whoa.
Where did he
Money's everywhere.
Did he get his ideas from there as well? You never know.
Another story about something that's been the craze of social media nowadays, especially here in the region, regarding money laundering, is the money laundering issue in Kuwait right now. Now, Kuwait's Interior Ministry has named 10 social media influencers connected to a money laundering investigation into an e-commerce site, watikat.com. A travel ban was actually placed on them, about 30 million Kuwaiti dinars. That's equivalent to around 360 Emirati dirhams in bank accounts frozen. And assets being investigated, such as luxury yachts, jewelry, cars, watches, and so much more. Now, the investigations are still ongoing, but yeah, this is the talk of the town nowadays.
Well, slightly worrisome indeed. Well, we'll take a bit of a breather at the moment. We've updated you with a big development in terms of Southeast Asia, but now moving a little bit more west. McDonald's, their shares are plunging, and that has been a bit of another big development that was shaping the headlines yesterday, but still is being discussed today. What's happening? All this will be discussed right here on the Morning Majlis.
Pulse 95.
The Morning Majlis, talking the stories that are shaping headlines. This is Pulse 95.
We just had this discussion off air at the moment, and
Got us hungry.
that's the worst thing when you talk about food and food chains, because especially when they made that documentary, Super Size Me, instead of warning a lot of young kids about, hey, this is bad, it just became a slight semi-advertisement. But this is no advertisement here. We're talking about business numbers. McDonald's has reported its worst global sales decline in recent memory, with drive-thrus delivery unable to make up for the blows from pandemic shutdowns and consumer caution. The fast foods company's total same-store sales in the second quarter dropped 23.9%. Slightly worse than what analysts had been expecting, despite getting mid-quarter updates throughout the spring. The worst performance, according to Bloomberg data going back at least 2005. 41.4% plunge in its international operated markets unit, which also includes stores in countries such as Spain, the UK, and France. And it's not been the best of all starts. Even though you'd assume when the pandemic hit that everyone would now be looking at takeaway and delivery options, and what is and it doesn't happen in most countries. McDelivery.
Yeah.
It
doesn't.
To an extent only limited to this part of the world.
Right.
And then this is the situation that it's just been not doing so and not doing as well as people would expect to.
Absolutely. All quarter long, actually, McDonald's had said international was weaker than its home market of the U.S., where comparable sales were down just 2.3% last month, nearly back to pre-pandemic levels. Now, its drive-through and take-out options played a role in easing the burden. The burger chain has been revamping digital options over the past few years, including touchscreen kiosks, which was a step that served really well through these uncertain times for McDonald's. Meanwhile, the chain says 96% of its global restaurants are open again, with 99% operating at home. Of course, open doesn't necessarily mean for sit-down dining. Now, earlier this summer, the fast food chain temporarily halted its reopening plans for U.S. dine-in services.
Yes, Rania, and McDonald's responding to these numbers and discussing them in more detail. According to CEO Chris Kempinski, he said in many markets around the world, most notably in the United States, the public health situation appears to be worsening, and said that this is a pretty tough time for us, but we've learned to operate in a new environment. So there is that sense of optimism. But there are some grim news for McDonald's, particularly in the United States. They had to close 200 locations this year, and this is being, in fact, prompted by the coronavirus, accelerating the closures of restaurants that had planned to shut down later on in years ahead. The CEO also said, "I'm certainly not qualified to make any predictions around whether we're going to be in a recession or not, but I'd certainly say there's a lot of warning signs out there that would suggest that the consumer sentiment and consumer concerns about the economy is negative and going in the wrong direction," he said. And going into more detail as well, breakfast which was already a troublesome part of the day for McDonald's, is suffering hard under COVID-19, dragging on in sales. There's also rising competitions from Wendy's as far as McDonald's is concerned. And that's because commuting routines is a big reason why people pick up breakfast in the first place. So when jobs are affected in that way, people aren't on their way picking up McDonald's as well. And finally, McDonald's is saying its drive-through, delivery, and digital options are helping bolster its business, and that the company has seen significant increases in drive-through sales across its restaurants. It's even locations which were forced to shut their dining rooms.
Did you guys watch the film that portrays a story of how McDonald's was created? It's called The Founder.
Yeah.
By stars Michael Keaton.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that. It
It was a really good one.
really goes to show how businesses can succeed by offering more convenience. And but yeah, that's the scenario at the moment. Dining options, and you've got to feel for restaurants. You have to feel for the F&B sector. But if
Yeah.
massive chains such as McDonald's was suffering,
We got a problem.
well, you've got a problem, and then you've got to also feel for the local F&B outlets in our own neighborhood. So it's always important to support them, and the best thing to do, and one of the best recommendations, is that you order directly from those restaurants as opposed to using those apps, because those apps obviously take a bit of a cut, food delivery apps. Apart from offering the local F&B an option to make the sales, there's still a cut, and not even though they're given the offer of using the delivery apps as bike services or delivery services. But it still is an important aspect to remember your own local F&B joints and support them, and just take time out and show your support, because they did suffer with the changing perceptions and expectations of the diners. But we will leave it at that. So we'll take a bit of a breather. We'll return right after the business news, in fact the sports news headlines, and focus more on international developments. So stay tuned to Pulse 95, and we'll be right back very, very shortly.
The heart of Sharjah.
The heart. The heart of Sharjah.
Pulse 95.